Have you ever walked into a room and felt a wave of sadness wash over you? A sorrow that wasn't your own? Have you ever come home from a simple trip to the store feeling heavy, burdened by the unspoken tensions of strangers you merely passed in an aisle? If you've ever felt the silent ache in a friend's heart before they've spoken a word, or felt the collective anxiety of a crowd as if it were coursing through your own veins, then this is for you. Listen closely. You are not imagining things, you are not too sensitive. You are not weak, and you are most certainly not cursed. You are something far rarer, far more profound. You are an empath. But I need you to hear me tonight, and I say this with all the sincerity in my soul. Your beautiful, powerful gift is in danger. The unseen danger when a soul shines as brightly as yours, not from ego, but from a genuine, inner flame of compassion. It doesn't just attract attention. It attracts danger. There's a fundamental law of the universe at play here. The unconscious, in its eternal quest for wholeness, is magnetically drawn to its opposite. As a carrier of immense light, you inevitably, and often unknowingly, attract those who have lost their own. This isn't just about psychology or mismatched personalities. It's a deeper, more ancient spiritual dance, a perilous form of alchemy. You see, most empaths are not born, they are forged. This profound sensitivity often blossoms in the fertile ground of a turbulent childhood. Perhaps you grew up with a caregiver whose moods were as unpredictable as the weather, forcing you to become a master of emotional meteorology. Or maybe you were navigating a world that felt too loud, too harsh, too chaotic, and feeling everything so intensely was the only way to make sense of it. Your body became a radar, your very soul a sponge. You learned to tune into every subtle shift in the emotional atmosphere, every unspoken word, every flicker in another's eyes. What began as a mechanism for survival slowly, imperceptibly, became your identity. The dance of light and shadow, and in the grand design of nature, every identity eventually draws its counterpart. It is an almost cosmic certainty that for nearly every empath, a narcissist waits in the wings, ready to complete a circuit of profound and painful energy. Now, I'm not talking about the everyday definition of narcissism, not simple vanity or a love of selfies. I'm speaking of an archetype, a symbolic representation of the fractured self. The narcissist, in this spiritual sense, is a soul who has exiled their own pain, cast their own shadow into the abyss, and now survives by siphoning the inner light of another. Think about the devastating symmetry of it. Where you, the empath, feel everything with overwhelming depth, the narcissist feels terrifyingly little. Where you give endlessly, pouring from your own cup to fill theirs, the narcissist takes without pause a black hole of need. You live your life immersed in the emotional currents of others, while they hide behind impenetrable walls, terrified of their own inner emptiness. You don't find each other by chance. It isn't fate or simple attraction. It is a magnetic pull born of psychological symmetry. The universe, in its relentless pursuit of balance, brings the unhealed bearer of light into the orbit of the shadow, devourer. This is not a coincidence. It is an age-old ritual, a primal attempt by the forces of light and dark to remember that they were once whole, once united. But a word of profound caution is needed here. This union is not sacred unless both partners are conscious and awakened. All too often, only one soul carries the crushing burden of awareness, and that soul is you. The wounded healer's prison, you, the empath, may fall into the beautiful, tragic belief that it is your sacred duty to heal the wounded. You see their brokenness and believe your love can be the glue that puts them back together. You pour your light into their darkness, hoping to restore what they have lost. But this isn't compassion. It's a form of possession. You are not possessed by some malevolent entity. but by an archetype far too vast for one person to carry alone. The archetype of the wounded healer. It is a path that feels like purpose, but is, in reality, a prison. The danger isn't in your light itself. It's in becoming so identified with being the light that you forget you are also a human being who needs light. The narcissist is drawn to this, though not always consciously. They aren't villains in their own story, but on a deep, unconscious level, they are desperately seeking the parts of themselves they have abandoned. The empathy, the vulnerability, the warmth. You become a mirror reflecting everything they've lost. A mirror they can neither live with nor shatter. Your empathy becomes a temporary anesthetic for their inner void. But, just as a vampire is said to fear its own reflection, they will eventually grow to resent you for showing them the very emptiness they are trying to escape. And you, dear soul, will begin to feel yourself fading, not physically at first, but in the very core of your being. Every compromise you make, every time you silence your own truth to keep the peace, every time you swallow your own needs to cater to theirs, it is a slow, silent offering on the altar of their denial. You'll have dreams of drowning, of being lost in endless, twisting corridors, of screaming without a sound. These are not just random images. These are desperate, urgent telegrams from your unconscious, pleading with you to wake up. They are messages from your soul, begging you to see that what you have called love may, in fact, be a slow, methodical process of self-erasure. That what feels like unwavering loyalty could be the ghost of an old trauma, playing out its tragic script once more. The doorway to freedom, but please do not lose hope. Your pain is not a punishment, it is a doorway. To walk away from such a dynamic is not an act of betrayal. It is the ultimate act of liberation. And in freeing yourself, you are not just escaping, you are reclaiming your light. You are taking it back, not as a resource to be consumed by others, but as a brilliant beacon to illuminate your own sacred path. Because here is the truth you must grasp. Your empathy, your beautiful, radiant light, was never meant to save someone else. It was meant to save you. It was meant to be the lantern that guides your own way forward. Without the foundational strength of clear, unwavering boundaries, we are destined for self-destruction. Love, when offered without discernment, morphs into the toxic tangle of codependency, and attempting to heal the wounds of others before we have tended to our own is not transformation. It is a slow and painful spiritual martyrdom. The path forward isn't about dimming your light or building walls around your heart. It's about cultivating a radical self-awareness. It's about having the courage to look not only into the eyes of others, but to gaze deeply into the mirror of your own soul. It is about meeting your own shadow, taking ownership of your projections, and learning the crucial difference between divine guidance and raw emotional impulse. True, lasting healing begins the moment the empath acknowledges their own hidden shadows. The part of you that craves to be needed, the part that fears abandonment so intensely that it will tolerate the intolerable to avoid being left alone. Only then can the cycle be truly broken. Just as the narcissist unconsciously consumes, the unawakened empath unconsciously offers themselves to be consumed. This isn't sainthood, it is profound self-neglect. In the quiet darkness of this reflection, I want you to ask yourself these questions. Be gentle, but be honest. Who truly benefits when I silence my own truth? Who gains power when I dim my inner knowing to make someone else comfortable? What part of me, deep down, still believes that I must suffer in order to be worthy of love? These questions are powerful keys. Turn them slowly. Behind the door they unlock lies not just freedom, but your true, authentic power. A power that isn't about fixing anyone else, but about seeing them with crystal clarity, without ever losing sight of yourself. The unconscious hunger you must understand a critical truth. The unconscious mind isn't evil, but it is amoral. It doesn't operate on a code of right and wrong. It doesn't care about your comfort, your happiness, or even your survival. Its sole, driving imperative is the quest for wholeness, and it will seek it at any cost. So, when you move through the world as an open, unguarded flame, the unconscious shadows in others will instinctively reach for you, not to connect, but to consume. What is unintegrated and wounded in them sees in you the light they cannot access within themselves. This isn't love, it's hunger. It's not a connection, it's absorption. This is the empath's great archetypal dilemma. To be born with the gift of profound emotional sensitivity, yet to be ensnared in the illusion that self-sacrifice is the noblest form of love. It's within this illusion that so many beautiful souls become lost. The line between meaningful service and thankless martyrdom becomes hopelessly blurred. What began as a calling slowly hardens into a compulsion. If you consistently feel emotionally drained, exhausted, and depleted after interacting with certain people, that is not your nervous system failing you. That is your soul screaming for your attention. Your body, you see, never lies. It holds a wisdom that your mind, with all its rationalizations, will often try to deny. Empaths are masters at trying to reason their way out of emotional chaos. Maybe I'm just too sensitive. They'll whisper to themselves. Maybe I'm overreacting. But this isn't sensitivity, it's submersion. You are drowning in the turbulent waters of someone else's unconscious, and you are calling it love. The single greatest danger for an empath is to assume responsibility for another person's transformation. The narcissist, or more accurately, the archetype of the devourer, will not change because you give more, love harder, or sacrifice deeper. They only begin to shift when the mirror you provide finally cracks. They change when their source of supply, your light, your energy, your attention, dries up. They change not because you loved them into healing, but because you loved yourself enough to walk away. And even then, change is only possible if their own soul is ready to undertake its own arduous journey. This is a bitter pill for an empath to swallow. It flies in the face of the trauma story that has been whispering in your ear for years. If I just love them enough, I will finally be safe. If I can just fix them, I will finally be worthy. This belief wasn't born in your adult relationships. It was forged in the crucible of your childhood. It's where you first learned to meticulously read the emotional climate of the adults around you, to anticipate the moods and needs of those who held your survival in their hands. You became a finely tuned instrument, not because it was a virtue, but because it was a necessity. And that brilliant survival tactic over time metastasized into an addiction to fixing, to peacekeeping, to being the savior for wounds you did not cause. But hear this now, with all the love in the universe. The child who learned that strategy was innocent and was just trying to survive. The adult you are today must awaken and choose a different path. The narcissist isn't just your opposite. They are a reflection of the part of you that still believes your worth is contingent on your usefulness to others. That belief is a cage, and until you find the courage to dismantle it, bar by bar, you will continue to attract those who are starving. People who will smile at the warmth of your fire while secretly, unconsciously, drinking from the very essence of your soul. Not because they are evil, but because you, in your unawakened state, have allowed it. You have thrown open the gates of your spirit without ever asking the most important questions. What am I protecting? And who is guarding the guardian? The love that heals you must now learn a different kind of love. Not the kind that bends and contorts until it shatters, but the kind that holds its sacred shape. A love with structure, a love with boundaries, a love that has the courage to declare, I will not abandon myself for you. This is the love that truly heals, not just others, but you. And here we arrive at the great paradox of the empath's journey. Empaths long, more than anything, to be seen and loved for who they truly are. Yet, in a tragic twist of fate, they so often hide that very self in their relentless pursuit of acceptance. They shift, they soften, they absorb, they adapt. They become emotional chameleons, changing their colors to match their surroundings, until one day they look in the mirror and no longer recognize the person staring back. This is the wound, and this is the final, urgent warning. If you do not consciously and deliberately return to yourself, others will continue to draw from you, not out of malice or cruelty, but simply because there is a void, and you are offering yourself up to fill it. If you do not set clear, firm boundaries for yourself, life will eventually set them for you. Through debilitating exhaustion, emotional collapse, and the heartbreaking realization that love should never, ever be equated with suffering. The myth of the empath is not just a personal struggle, it is a collective one. You carry the untended grief of generations. You dream the dreams of ancestors who were unseen, unheard, and unloved. Your heart becomes a vessel for the world's unspoken sorrow. But your sacred task is not to continue carrying this burden. Your task is to transform it. And that transformation begins the moment you decide, with every fiber of your being, no more. No more self-abandonment in the name of approval. No more confusing the intoxicating intensity of a trauma bond with the steady light of a soulmate. No more trading your own inner calling to become someone else's emotional anchor. The world does not need more exhausted, burnt-out healers. It needs aware ones, whole ones, courageous ones. It needs empaths who have learned to guard their energy, not by shutting down and withdrawing from the world, but through the practice of wise and loving discernment. And what is discernment? It's the quiet strength to name your own feelings, even when it makes others uncomfortable. It's the sacred pause you take before saying yes to something when every cell in your body is screaming no. It's choosing yourself, not from a place of ego, but from a place of profound spiritual integrity. Because if your own well is dry, what living water can you truly offer to the world? Let me be unequivocally clear, you are not too much. You never were. But you have been giving far too much of yourself to those who are incapable of receiving it. That is not a flaw in your character, it is a pattern in your life. And the moment a pattern becomes conscious, it ceases to be a prison and becomes a doorway. That is the alchemy. That is the moment your empathy transforms from a crushing burden into an unstoppable power. The danger was never that people are inherently harmful. The danger is that people are wounded, and wounds instinctively seek out sources of healing, even if it means draining the healer dry, especially when the healer has not yet learned to recognize the infinite value of their own light. But now you do. The awakened empath, the soul in its infinite wisdom, craves balance. For you, the empath, that balance begins with learning the beautiful, sacred language of limits. It begins with the profound realization that love is not measured by how much pain you can endure for someone, but by how much truth you can embody for yourself. This is the beginning of individuation, the sacred journey of not merging with others, but of finally, gloriously, coming home to yourself. Every empath reaches this holy turning point, and it is often accompanied by a terrible fear, the fear of being seen as selfish. But I want you to know that this fear is not the voice of your higher self speaking. It is the ghost of old conditioning. It's the echo of a voice from your past that told you your needs were a burden, your emotions were too intense, and your truth was too dangerous to be spoken aloud. So, I ask you again, how much longer will you pay the price for that old story? How many more times will you betray your own intuition just because someone else might get upset? How many more sleepless nights will you spend wrestling with emotions that were never even yours to begin with? Your heart is a compass, but it can only guide you truly when it first points inward. If your sensitivity is only ever used to scan the horizon for external chaos, you will forever be a magnet for suffering. But when you turn that same powerful sensitivity inward, it becomes the light of clarity. Clarity about what is yours to carry and what is not. Clarity about the unique architecture of your soul. Clarity about the subtle energies that whisper, "This is for you," and "This is not." And do you know what happens when an empath truly awakens? They stop apologizing for their existence. They stop shrinking themselves to fit into spaces where they were never meant to be. They stop over-explaining their boundaries to people who directly benefit from them having none. They begin to shine, not as flickering lanterns in someone else's storm, but as steady, grounded torches, radiating a light that is their own. They stop begging for a seat at someone else's table and begin the sacred work of building their own altar. An altar built not on the foundation of sacrifice, but on the unshakable bedrock of truth. This is what the world secretly fears and desperately needs, the empath who has reclaimed their power. Because once you remember who you are no longer easily manipulated. You are no longer available for emotional vampires masquerading as deep connections. You stop confusing chaos with compatibility, intensity with intimacy, and you begin to ask the one question that changes everything. Does this relationship, this situation, this choice, support the person I am consciously choosing to become? That question is a sword of light. It slices through illusion. It becomes the lens through which every aspect of your life is filtered. And no, it does not make you cold or distant. It makes you clear. And clarity is one of the most potent and compassionate forms of love there is. Let me leave you with this final truth. Not everyone who claims to need your light is meant to receive it. Some will come to you with compelling stories of woe and heartbreakingly wounded eyes. Some will weep in your presence while secretly sharpening the knives they will use to wound you. And others, perhaps the most confusing of all, may genuinely love you, but only the smaller, quieter, more convenient version of you that never challenges their comfort zone. Your light is sacred. It is not a free-fall, all buffet. You do not owe your soul to every outstretched hand. Remember, even the greatest spiritual masters in history had boundaries. They retreated, they rested, they discerned. So, when you feel that familiar pull towards someone, I implore you to pause. Take a sacred breath and ask your deepest self, is this resonance or is this repetition? Is this my intuition guiding me? Or is this an old, familiar wound seeking to resolve itself through another painful reenactment? Because not every magnetic pull is divine guidance. Sometimes it's just trauma dressed up as destiny. Sometimes it's the whispered plea of your inner child hoping, just hoping, maybe this time I'll be chosen. Maybe this time I'll be enough. But the journey of the awakened empath teaches us the ultimate truth. You must be the one to choose yourself, first and always. You must become the loving, fiercely protective parent that your own wounded heart never had. You must become the guardian at the gate of your own soul, the one who looks into your own eyes and promises with unshakable conviction, I will not abandon you again, not for anyone, not even in the name of love. The final warning for the empath isn't about the dangers lurking in the outside world. It's about confronting the unhealed ache within the desperate, subconscious urge to be needed. When you pour your very life force into others, believing that love must drain you to be real, you are simply rewriting the same old story of self-erasure. That path does not lead to enlightenment. It leads to burnout, disillusionment, and despair. But when you finally see the pattern, when you see it with eyes wide open, you take back the pen. You reclaim your power as the author of your own life. And you begin to write a new chapter. A chapter where you are not a sponge, indiscriminately absorbing the world's pain, but a sacred vessel, channeling truth and wisdom. A chapter where your light doesn't flicker on the verge of extinction, but shines with clear, unwavering intention. And you will finally understand that your true purpose was never to rescue others from their darkness. It was to so brilliantly illuminate your own path that you become living proof that healing is possible, not by soaking up the pain of the world, but by courageously transforming your own. Empath, your greatest gift is not your capacity to suffer. It is your capacity to see. You feel what others cannot. You notice what others miss. But with this extraordinary gift comes the sacred responsibility to protect it, to honor it, and to cherish its infinite worth. Let your yes carry the weight of a sacred vow. Let your no be a holy shield for your spirit. Let your presence be a blessing that inspires, not a resource to be consumed. You are not here to fill the emptiness in everyone else. You are not a cure. You are not a savior. You are a soul, whole, worthy and complete, all on your own. And the moment you truly, deeply believe this, the world will stop consuming your energy and begin to stand in awe of your light.